Hi, my name is Hafsa Lodi. I'm a fashion and culture editor in Dubai, and I am delighted to be joined by three brilliant authors today. Subhadra Das of Uncivilised, 10 Lies That Made the West, Tricia Hersey of Rest is Resistance, and Emma Dabiri of Disobedient Bodies. Thank you so much for being here with us today, all of you. Thank you. So all of your books are so different in subject matter, but one common thread between all of them is the message and kind of this urgency to decolonize the mind, body, and spirit. What exactly does this mean? Subhadra, I'll start with you.
Oh, thanks. Okay. I was at the event last night. I was saying my book has only been reviewed once, like in the public press, and the history professor who reviewed it seemed to take it into his head that my book was about decolonizing, which is a word that only appears once in the whole thing, talking about the movement to decolonize education, which is the subject of my second chapter. So we live in troubled times. So just for the sake of clarity, my book is not about decolonizing anything. What it's about is uncovering the white supremacy that is baked into our ideas of understanding Western civilization, and about stories that haven't been heard before, why we need to know them, and why it's important to break them down. So for me, maybe we need to just stop using the words and just start doing the work instead.
Very good point. Tricia, how about you? What does it mean for you?
Yeah, I'm on a similar vein. I think it's healing and repair. It's awareness. It's uncovering and bringing things to light that have been hidden, so that once that happens, I trust our divine bodies, I trust our spirits, I trust humans, I trust divinity to be able to work through once that has happened. But I really think it's an uncovering, it's a repair, and it's healing work.
And Emma, you discussed this in the context of beauty standards and race.
Yeah, so the beauty standards only really laterally in the last book, Disobedient Bodies. I do discuss it in beauty standards, but more broadly, I think I discuss it in terms of just the very fabric of reality, in terms of how our reality has been organized. And I feel that I don't think this is just my opinion, we live under a social, political, economic system that is extractive and exploitative at its core, which is, a direct result of colonization. We live in the modern world has been shaped by imperialism and colonization according to these principles of exploitation and extraction. And I think that affects every single aspect of our lives, and also has completely colonized our imaginations, which I think is why your work is so incredibly important. So it's about, first of all, having an awareness of that, and then thinking about alternative ways of being. And I think because on all of my kind of ancestry is cultures that have been colonized. So I'm Irish and Yoruba, which is one of the main ethnic groups in Nigeria. And so I'm really fascinated in what exists in cultures that have been colonized that point to ways of imagining and doing things differently. So that's what a lot of my work explores.
And you mentioned just now having awareness of that. Like on a personal note, was there a sort of aha moment in your lives when you saw these systems of capitalism and colonialism for these biased systems of hierarchy and oppression that they are? Was there like an aha moment where you knew this is the path I'm going to take to kind of work against this?
I guess I'll chime in. I don't think it was an aha moment for me. I think it was the center of my entire life from birth. I was raised by an activist. My father was deeply involved in activist movements, and also he was a union organizer, organizing for labor unions in Chicago, where I'm from in the States. And from a very young age, my father told me, you're black and you're a girl, and because of those things, people will hate you, but they're all lying. He was very clear to be like, none of it is true. And so from a very young age, I was always taught it's all untrue. You are a miracle. You are very special because of that. See those two things as things that are very deeply aligned with you as a human being and your divinity. And so I don't think it was necessarily an aha moment just because of the way I was raised. I was also raised in the Black Pentecostal church. My dad was this Black activist, also a Black preacher who preached about Black liberation theology, which is a theology that looks at the least. Those who are in the least are the ones closest to God. You know, the idea of oppression being a force of evil. And so I always knew that I was surrounded in a world that was living off of these tenets, and that none of them were true, that they were false, and that those who knew, and the ones who didn't, we needed to like bring along. And so I think I'm blessed that I have had that moment, that I've been able since a very young child to be like, nope, you're special, you're a girl, that's special, you're Black, that's special, you're a miracle, they're lying. So yes, beautiful thing.
Yeah, you're very lucky in that sense. How about you, Emma?
Mine was slightly different, but I think some of the principles are certainly the same. I honestly think my first exposure to political consciousness and anti-imperialism, it was at a very young age, but I think it was from my mother teaching me like Irish poetry and like traditional songs, that many of which are, you know, just really, they're wonderful stories, but they are like, yeah, anti-imperial songs often. So I think that was my initial kind of introduction, was through song. And I feel like song is such a powerful medium, because you're kind of learning by, it's not didactic in the same way, you're kind of like learning by osmosis. And then I feel that also, like, my Nigerian grandfather was a judge, and he, in Nigeria, and he had a lot of cases where he like represented, say, like minors against like the kind of colonial government. I wasn't really aware of that, or this was before I was born, and I wasn't really aware of that work, but I lived with him until I was like 5. And him also, and my father, had a lot of books that were just kind of, yeah, like Black consciousness, like Black philosophy, like Walter Rodney's How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. I wasn't reading it when I was 5, but I remembered the spine of that book and that title. So I just had this going into my head, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, you know, from a young age. So I think this was my initial introduction to these ideas.
I'm afraid I'm a bit later to the party, unfortunately. I do always say I'm like the whitest brown person you're ever going to meet. I'm the product of a white curriculum. I did really, really well at school. I like swallowed it whole and like gave it back on the tests. But I ended up, University College London, where I used to work, accidentally put a brown girl in charge of their race science collection. And I'm really grateful to a lot of colleagues at the university who worked with me, particularly Dr. Nathaniel Coleman.
I love Nathaniel
isn't
Coleman.
there? And he invited me for a cup of coffee to basically to tell me what was what. If you know Nathaniel, that's what he does. And in the course of the conversation, Nathaniel is very precise about language. He's an academic. And throughout the conversation, he was talking about how people are racialized. And suddenly, I was just like, it was a eureka moment for me, because I'd always been told racism is bad, there is no biological basis for the idea of race. But no one ever told me how we started talking about race in the first place if it wasn't a real thing. And so simply by him saying, you are racialized, I was like, oh, it's a process. How did it happen? And yeah.
Yeah, I always take great pains to say racialized as white, racialized as Black. And I think people are like, what is she talking about? Like, why is she saying this whole mouthful instead of just saying the words? But I think it's really important that we have that understanding of the creation of the racial categories, Black and white. And that's what my second book was really trying to mainstream, that information.
You all discussed the notion of it kind of being our birthright to reclaiming the narrative in your books, Subhadra, and your analysis kind of colonialism and the gradual theft of Native American land in the US, Emma in our right to reclaim our cultural beauty standards, and Tricia in our natural right to rest. How can we average people become emboldened to recognize and reclaim our rights?
Can I resist a little bit of the metaphor there? But I definitely appreciate you reading the book. I'm always very grateful. But I think ideas to do with birthright kind of feed into ideas to do with possession. And the ways in which lots of indigenous people think about the land they live on is not that the land belongs to them, but that they belong to the land. And so I think it's important to acknowledge those other ways of thinking about the world we live in. And I think, as Tricia very eloquently says, it's just about the being and kind of being there. I'm sorry, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The question was how do people reclaim that? Is there a process or what that looks like? Yeah. I think that if left to our own devices, if we could just be, that it all will work, And so I think the idea is to understand what is happening is not true. And I think in my work, I've watched that. I've watched people hear about my work, hear about the idea of rest as resistance. They like, I don't know if I get that.
It's really hard.
Yeah, it's hard. And so, I'm love the idea of the journey of it. I think it's an indictment on our culture that we need to have everything figured out, step by step, wrapped up in a box, organized. This is what it is. And I really want to open the space for people to experiment with the idea and to also see it as a lifelong, meticulous practice in love. And I think to bring up my favorite bell hooks, to think about the idea of love, the more that we can deepen into the idea of what it means to love ourselves and to love each other and for deep community, that all those other things, they're there, the toxic systems, all the oppression, all those things, they're there, but that love itself disrupts it and pushes back. And so all I really want in my work is for it to be a disruption. I don't believe that my work is going to solve the entire, totality of what's happening in our life. But I love the idea of a pushback, of a being like, no, I see it. I peep this. This is wrong. It's not correct. And to be a disruption in the narrative, in this narrative that is continuing. So I love little disruptions. I'm really about the idea of just being a disruptor and thinking about the idea of saying no. And so I don't think that I can really pinpoint a full understanding of how. I just know that if we center love, if we see love as like a practice of real freedom, if we continue, like when my father was telling me as an 8-year-old little girl, like, no, you're good, you're special. Keep remembering that, know that inside of you. Everything else is the illusion and the lie. That really buoyed me up my entire life as I navigated all the ills, all of the things what other people told me about myself and I knew wasn't true because I had been centered in an ethic of love that said, all this, it's an illusion. So from that, you can begin to now have that awareness. And so I love awareness. I love just knowing, just peeping, just being like, okay, I see it. And then seeing what from that can come. It's like centering that in your body, in your spirit, and then moving from that.
Subhadra, in your chapter, Time is Money, you write about your working self as almost a completely separate persona. And you write, I close the lid on my laptop at the end of my working day, and for a few moments, I'm completely discombobulated. Just as when waking from a dream, I'm forced to ask the question, who am I again? Then piece myself back together. This is a loaded question. How has capitalism taken over our personalities, almost to the extent of eroding our souls?
I'm just thrilled that I love it when people read my work back to me.
When they pull quotes, it's so good, right?
It's so nice. It's like such a boost. Sorry, what was the question? Okay. Well, no, but that is, and I think this is the common thread in all of our works, and particularly Emma's work about Don't Touch My Hair.
Chapter with a really similar title.
Yeah. And so this idea of the commodification of time, we know that our time is valuable, but the fact that there's literally a dollar amount put on it And therefore, the onus then becomes put on us as to how we are best using our time. And it's funny, I recognize myself kind of in that moment because writing it and then closing the laptop lid. But then what I go on to say is like, oh, well, there's the to-do list on my phone that I can then pick up even if the laptop is closed. And if I had bothered to get a smartwatch, ironically, it would be on there too. And the day is just one endless to-do list. And it's almost to the point where we don't realize that we are people in and of ourselves that don't have to do all the things, that can simply be who we are and be beautiful and be loved for who we are. Yeah, it's excuse the casual swear, but quite frankly, if this is the thing that offends you most about what I'm about to say, capitalism is a bitch.
We need to put that on a t-shirt.
No, because no. just believe it.
free t-shirt.
You see what happened there? Okay, yeah.
I played right into it.
I would wear it, though.
Tricia and Emma, you both talk about the divine feminine and not only tapping into it, but also embracing and nurturing it. And Emma, you write, the divine feminine can be understood as a spiritual concept that offers a counterpoint to the patriarchal and masculinist traditions of organized religions and the dominator logic of capitalism. So in my experience in Muslim feminism as well, many scholars and authors talk about re-examining sacred texts from the divine feminine lens, which can be more nurturing. How can this concept or perspective be an antidote to systems of oppression?
I have one reference to the divine feminine across all of my work, which is just that one. So it's not like a really kind of central organizing principle in my writing. So if Tricia would like to speak about it, she'd be more than welcome to. But I will speak about the commodification of time, because that's a big theme in my work.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I want to hear it.
Yeah, and I actually I sent you a really early draft of it because I felt such a synergy between your work and these ideas that I was exploring. I think because, again, just having knowledge and awareness, we do find it so hard to rest. It feels unnatural and frightening and just kind of like unimaginable and impermissible. We have been trained and conditioned to be these maximizing productivity, to be, even if we rest, it's so we can be more productive. That's the only way we can do it in a kind of guilt-free way. And it's hard for us to imagine any alternative way of being. So again, because with my work, I try and look at how things were in other places, other times and places, before the imposition of capitalist logic and capitalist and time and the subscribing to the 24-hour clock, subscribing to industrial time. I went back to pre-colonial Yoruba land, and how people had a 4-day week, and they organized it according to activities, like work activities that needed to be done. They're farmers, so people would farm, but the day was divided. Oh, someone's apologizing for something. The day was divided between these farming activities, socializing, song, braiding your hair, because the book's about hair, whatever you needed to do. And there's a quote from an African philosopher called John Mbiti, who talks about how man was not a slave of time. Like in Africa, in African metaphysics, man was not a slave of time, but had enough time to do whatever they wanted with. So you couldn't have enough, the idea that you wouldn't have enough time to do your hair would have been inconceivable, because you have as much time as you need to do whatever it is that you need to do, because you're not enslaved to time. You don't have to be productive for somebody else with your time. So I think it's really important that we know the way we live now is incredibly unnatural. And for most of time, in most parts of the world, people have not had this relationship with time and have had plenty of time to socialize and to rest and to love and to just be. But our economic system does not allow us to just be.
And apart from the economic system, you also talk about social media and how that's such a big intrusion into our lives, and how all of these conversations are in like one kind of flow of communication and often pressuring us to, look a certain way or do something with our hair or have some sort of cosmetic procedure to fit a certain mold. If you'd like to speak more about that.
Yeah, so, social media, I think, is about to... My work has been critical of social media in the past, but I think social media is about to evolve into, I think, something that we hadn't even begun to imagine. So I think the next few years on social media are going to be something of a wild ride, an unprecedented wild ride. But I think to date, in terms of beauty, it's been interesting because we have seen a great diversification in terms of what is permissible as beauty, and I think so much of that has been through social media and the kind of democratization of beauty that has occurred to an extent on that. But simultaneously, we have also witnessed, because these are visual landscapes, we have experienced a reorganizing, reconstituting of the world where the way we look has possibly never had so much primacy. I feel we are obsessed with the way we look in ways that are unprecedented. And I think that's also very much the result of social media. So yeah, it's something of a poison chalice.
Any thoughts, Tricia?
I always want to rant about social media. I'm over it. I hate it. I talk about it so much. Like, I'm planning my escape from it. My new book, We Will Rest, The Art of Escape. I'm uplifting the idea of trickster energy, how to be an escape artist, what it means to be a trickster. And I think I use social media as a trickster. When I started doing my work, I was doing the work in my hometown in Atlanta for 3 years before I even put up a social media page. And I was just on the ground, community organizing, right out of graduate school, just having real community with people. Like, I want to do these rest events. I don't have any money. Can I do it at your space? Sure, you can use my space. Like, just on the ground, free events for the community to begin to look at what resting can do for our lives, hosting these beautiful napping events. And then my friend, it was such a naive moment when I look back at it. This was in 2016. She was like, "You think you should probably get some social media?" I was like, "I don't know why." She's like, "I don't know, maybe you can just post about the events." I'm like, "Okay." So, I put it up, and now like a million people are following, our page collectively from IG and everything. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I really rant about we won't be able to really push any type of movement forward around resting, around the theft of our time, around distraction, stolen time, unless we begin to really, really look at social media and what it's doing to our lives, the addiction, the detox from it. And what I have found is people are severely addicted, because every time I bring it up, like, I had to stop mentioning it on my Instagram page because people were wanting to fight me. They were like, "We love, what do you mean? What do you mean?" They were so mad at me for just like examining it and being like, "No, it's kind of messed up a little." And they were like, "No, we need it for community." And so what I'm finding now is that people are replacing social media with community. Social media is a community, but people are coming to me and being like, "Can you please explain to me how I make community off of social media?" And I'm like, wow, it's really been such a brain understanding to understand that people really don't understand. I'm like, can you go next door and knock on the door of your neighbor? I don't know, maybe that's an idea. Like, can you go say hi to the person next to you? Do you know? Like, we still have mouths, we still have bodies, we still are people who can navigate and be around each other. Like, it doesn't have to always be in this technological way. And I'm learning that people don't know how to do that anymore. Like, it's really being lost. And so that's a scary thing to me.
That is absolutely terrifying. Like, when you think about it, and then when you think about the centralized power that controls social media.
Yes.
So everybody is beholden to that.
But this is the contradiction as well. So if you look at my social media, which, to be honest, I'm only kind of maintaining because I think I have to for professional reasons.
Yeah.
I will still call it Twitter because it was almost a happy place back then. It wasn't. It was still a cesspool.
No,
but it was a happy
remember a
cesspit.
world where I enjoyed it.
Yeah, there was a minute where it was fun. But you will notice that it's kind of frozen at a particular historical moment dating to about 18 months ago. And because it felt futile to be posting pictures of my cups of coffee when, with everything else that I was seeing coming through my feed. So that was part of it. And now with the discourse with the tech bros sitting in the front row behind the new president at his inauguration, running all of these things, the discussion is, I completely agree with you, by the way, I don't mean this to sound like a no but, it's very much a yes and, which is like, well, actually, we should be there as there is room for resistance politically on these sites as well.
Agree.
And so, yeah, it has its place, but so long as it's serving us and not the other way around, I guess.
No, I actually disagree. I mean, I'm still on it, okay?
No, fair enough.
Yeah, we all are.
Very active on there. But I ultimately think we're going to have to divest from it.
I agree.
Because
if you could tell me how, that would be great.
No matter what your political position, persuasion, how radical what you're saying is, you're saying it in the space that is empowering those people, irrespective of what you're saying. So we really have to get off it, maybe like have other social media companies,
that's very true.
Because it is a very useful tool. But I think the ones that currently exist are...
They're going to get worse, like you said, the next couple, and then we have AI coming and all of the pages that are being made. Yeah, it's a wild time. And so I think that is one thing that I talk about so much, that we're going to have to find ways to divest from it. I tell people these platforms were not created for a community. They were created to make money, and they're an extension of capitalism. So an analysis of capitalism is so important in anything that we're moving in. We really got to deepen into that. And I keep bringing it up, and they're just like, people are looking at me like, well, no, I'm like, they didn't create this so you can talk to your grandma. They want you on here as long as you can to own the ads, marketing, making money. And so I think the more that we can have awareness around what is really happening, and that's why I love rest so much, is that I think resting and sleeping and slowing down allows us to really see what is going on. I think an exhausted, sleep-deprived mind and body allows for much manipulation. It takes away our dream space. Our imagination is stolen, like you were speaking about. And so I really think imagination is going to happen in our dreams and in our slowed down moments and in community with each other, off technology, really imagine the new world we want to see.
When you look, just very quickly, when you look at colonial texts about Africa, and I would imagine other parts of the world as well, just my speciality is Africa, the references to the idle natives are just constant. They're obsessed with idle time. They're so angry.
Get up,
work so you can pay us taxes. And when you actually look at how people are living, they are actually like living lives that are like quite abundant in many ways, just even in terms of like the resources and food that they have access to, often in comparison to now. So even with that idle time, their lives are far like richer, but the colonial mentality cannot, they cannot tolerate.
Yeah, you see that in our current, I think people, when I first started the NAP ministry, it was not cute and fun like people now. They love me. They love the NAP bishop. It was hard times. People were hating. They were like, what does this have to do with white supremacy? And you're just being a lazy black woman, and you need to get up and work, and I love to grind. And it was really, people were fighting with me. They were like, I don't understand what rest has to do with capitalism and white supremacy. They're like, make the connection for me. And I'm like, you go take a nap. It's at this point, let the connection happen in the dream space. It was so odd. I think there is a movement now happening. People are seeing it. There's I've been all over the world speaking about this, Amsterdam and, Australia and all over the States and just a lot of places speaking about this. And there's a new movement happening towards people understanding what's really going on around our labor, what our time, what capitalism demands. You know, it demands disconnection from your body, it demands disembodiment, it demands disconnection from your community. It demands a lot of things that are very, very toxic. And I'm so happy to see like there's a new revival and an understanding and awareness. That's all I wanted. I just wanted to like pull back a veil and for people to see. And after that, I trust our bodies. I trust the divine nature of who we are to begin to repair and move through it. We don't need a step-by-step, this is how you do it. You know, we just need the awareness to understand what's really happening, and rest can help us.
I like how you just mentioned like the disconnection, and there's this big focus on like productivity in this realm with capitalism, but I'm going to read another part of Subhadra's book.
Oh, by all means.
I have learned through bitter experience that there's nothing like a deadline to concentrate the mind. However, when it comes to the ultimate deadline, the one right at the end of our lives, it seems as though most of us in the West have barely given it a moment's thought. After all, we are so busy.
That was just a sideswipe. A friend of mine was getting married at the time, and it was her wedding, but it felt like I was doing a lot of work for it. But yeah, it's just like, yeah. This idea that what is natural, and I mean, this is the real insidiousness of ideas to do with race and how people are racialized, is that they're made to seem like it is natural. There is something inherently or innately lazy about these people that makes them bad, that makes them not worth the effort, that makes them uncivilized. And that is the really hard thing, because if that is the ways in which you are taught to perceive a certain group of people, then you have to do the work to be able to break that mold. Don't you love it when people talk about the title of the thing in the thing? And but there is work involved in that, but that work is, I would say, vital, again, to the nature of resistance. But also, yeah, think about who you are and why you are here. And sorry, I was kind of joking about the friend in the wedding, and you know, I love her, I wish she had made better choices in her life. She's not going to hear this, she doesn't know. But so often the choices that we make in our lives about, you go to school where they teach you how to be a certain way. You have to go to university to be able to be successful. Particularly as women, you have to get married, otherwise how is anyone going to know what your value is? Then you have to have children to be able to demonstrate that. Then this, then this, then this, then this. And then you don't even have time to plan your funeral. So what are you here for? What are you doing? What is the point of all of this? And that is why that chapter, that's the death chapter. And why I say death is a place of communal care. And for those of you who were here yesterday, that's the one about the zombies. That's why we need to remember the zombies, and why zombies are real and why they are important. Because in Haiti, people take care of you regardless of what you are working and what you are producing. And you know what they see you as being able to do for them. They just care about you regardless. Perhaps we need to add a little bit of cynicism into that. It's not so straightforward a story. But yeah, who are we? What are we here for? What are we doing?
Did you feel like while writing and researching your books, you came to some spiritual enlightenment or realizations, any deeper thoughts that were pulling at your consciences?
I feel like Tricia was already there to start with, and that like I'm still working at it. And I'm still too busy like on Instagram bookmarking reels to use for my next book. But it's so difficult with these things. It's like, I wonder, because as someone who was brought up a Hindu, I don't know where my Protestant work ethic comes from. I think it might be my mum.
Patriarchy, right?
Yeah.
The women are always going, can't sit down.
It's true.
Working.
I mean, she was a doctor, and
yeah.
so she never sleep for her. Like she slept when she retired.
Exactly.
Thankfully, she's had some time to do that.
Yeah.
But even at 83, she's still like pottering around, and she's like, I hate myself because I'm such a burden to other people. I'm so slow. I can't do all this. So sorry, Mum, this is so personal, and nobody else's business. But like, it just breaks my heart. I'm like,
yes, heartbreaking.
Stop we don't care. We love you. You know, we want to take care of you. You work so hard all your life. You took care of so many people in your life. She was a gynecologist and obstetrician. She probably delivered half the people in the UAE for a certain generation. And you know, it's just like, how much do you have to do before you can chill and rest and just love yourself and be loved?
You know, just to add on to those expectations of women, Emma, you write at one point, here's the thing, why are we focusing our efforts on trying to excel according to the norms of our current beauty standards, or indeed fighting for inclusion within them in the first place? Do we want to win or even participate in a system that has positioned and continues to position women in these ways? This, for me, is one of the powerful arguments for transformation rather than inclusion. And I think you all have this kind of message that we're looking to transform, not just have our little inclusive space in the system, not this tokenistic gesture of a diverse model here and there. This sounds like a very long and lengthy goal, long and lofty goal, sorry. Do you hope to see it in our lifetimes, this kind of wide-scale transformation? I think in the past 2 years, we've already started to see some of this with biases in the mainstream media coming to light, but what are kind of some actionable steps you would recommend?
Yeah.
That was a lot in there. It was so much I wanted to jump on. I think I've always been pushing the idea, I don't want to sit at the table. The table's full of oppressors. Why do I want to sit there? You know, like, go. The table needs to be knocked over. I don't want that seat. Like, I say that in my book. I say, and also in some of the oracle, I have an oracle deck of cards that you can pull how to degrind, how to kind of get out of grind culture. And one of the cards says, I don't want to sit at the table. The table is full of oppressors. I want a blanket and a pillow, and I want to rest down by the ocean. You know, I want to lay down. You can replace the table and chairs with a blanket and a pillow for me. Like, I want to lay myself down, and I see resting as a reparations, as resistance. And so I always am speaking with, you know, all the girl boss ladies and the people, the boss babes who are like, they want to be at the table, put me down, I want to be a part of it. And it's like, we got to push to place people in these places that are not at all safe for them. You know, why do we want to place people in places that have not been prepared for safety for them? Just put them in there so that they can kind of like try to make it happen. And I just am really big on, like, when I talk about my new book, The We Will Rest, the idea of escaping and what it looks like to escape this entire idea, like a spiritual escape, of psychological escape, a telepathic escape. I'm thinking about my grandmother, who I said, I'm in this world, but I'm not of the world. You know, I'm not of this world. I'm in it, but I'm not of it. The joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. They can't take it. Like, trying to exist almost like an escape artist, a maroon. I talk about the maroons in my first book, the idea of maroonage and what that looks like. I think, you know, I don't want to down any of the movements that people got going, like diversity, getting involved, but I think we need to add to that the idea of maroonage, the idea of telepathic and psychological and moments underground and mentally, like, centering the systems and, like, really trying to create in our own ways of being. You know, I love that. I love speaking about the historic maroons of North Africa. You know, they talk about the ones in the Caribbean, but there were, you know, people who were on the during the transatlantic slave trade who jumped off of the ships and were never to be found again. And they weren't fugitives. They were just living in their own underground communities that they made. And the maroonage, the idea of what it means to maroon, what it means to be a trickster, what it means to escape, what it means to find ways of escape with others, and deep community building. I think community building is being left out of the conversation. It's always a conversation about inclusion, adding, right? It's like, okay, what about us actually getting together? You know, as my father was a union organizer and labor organizer in Chicago, I watched him do underground meetings in the living room. I grew up with him in the living room with 10 other people, and they're like strategizing quietly, and my mother's in the back making tacos and feeding, and, you know, just watching how people there's deep communities that have been offline, underground. And when I say underground, I mean, like, literally just in someone's living room. We need to also look at movements that are just 3 people in the living room plotting. Why does it always have to be this, organized 10,000 people? We have a logo, we have it gorgeous, we have the color scheme, we got a web page. I'm talking about some real scheming, some real scheming and plotting. We need to get back into that because that's how we really, I think, is going to save us. I think community care and the idea of organizing with each other on the ground is what is going to save us. Trying to look to the other systems. I don't think capitalism will be gone in my lifetime. But that doesn't mean that I don't continue to move in a way that doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter whether or not this is going to be gone in my lifetime. I'm working in the now. I'm seeing the future now. I'm looking at liberation and justice for the now, and I'm not waiting. I'm not asking. I'm not waiting. I'm not trying to get permission. I'm going to move with other humans and commune and organize with other humans who are on that and bring people along. One of my favorite quotes, I'll end with this, is by one of Malcolm X's daughters. I saw her speak, Atala Shabazz. She said, my wish is that we all get free, and if you get free before me, come get me, don't forget about me. And so I think the idea of freedom for all of us, and that when we make it, we come back and bring people on and we don't forget about each other. I feel like there's a lot of forgetting of each other. We're not seeing each other clearly anymore, and I think the systems want that.
Big up.
I have so many more questions, but I feel like you all must have questions too, so maybe I should stop here. And yes, if you have a question, you can raise your hand.
Here we go. He's coming.
Oh, do you need one of these?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much. I have a comment and a question. My comment is resonating about the seat at the table, because I'm from a corporate background and been trying to jump through those hoops and get at the table. And now you're right, I don't want it anymore. An Arab woman asked me to join a board last year of a project about, in Arabic it translates to she leads, about promoting Arab women leaders. Great initiative, but I joked, I was like, only if I could lead the subcommittee of Save Us, because I was like, I just, we need to flip this leadership and the model, the Western capitalist leadership model. And it's just, there's a lot to unpack, but my question actually is, what are your thoughts around how these, how men have been let down? Because you talked a lot about women, but I actually feel like men have been let down, and it's thrown us all off balance. So I'd love to hear your reflections on that, if any. Thank you.
I have to say my sympathy is relatively limited. Hashtag not all men. I feel like it would be easy enough to kind of reproduce the tropes of patriarchy is detrimental to everyone, notions to do of toxic masculinity particularly. By the way, toxic masculinity and masculinity are not the same thing. If you take nothing else away from that, take that. But yeah, the point about this system is that everybody is harmed, even the people who are supposedly benefiting from it. The only problem there is convincing them that they are suffering. And so until such a time as the rewards and the benefits of the system do not become worth sacrificing your fellow human beings for, quite literally, I don't know. But the reason why my sympathy is limited is because when you have power within this system, at least use it in the right direction. But yes.
Okay. I'm gonna pick up on that. Yeah, I feel like it's not necessarily about having sympathy for men. Just to come back to what you're saying, I think it's actually crucial. It is of the utmost importance that we create narratives, that we create as compelling a story as possible, that we can demonstrate to male, female, to basically to so many different demographics of people, that they are harmed, that their life opportunities are greatly diminished by the inequalities perpetuated by capitalism. Of course, some groups are far more at the coalface of that than others, but almost everybody, apart from a very, very small group of ruling class people, is having their life opportunities, just their experience of living, their experience of this one life is actually being like so diminished for them. And I feel if we could have compelling storytelling around that, and we could bring more people on board, we could create these mass movements that were so powerful that they just couldn't be ignored. But instead, we have had a form of organizing that has atomized struggles, pitted different demographics against each other, focused far more on what separates us, and having us kind of squabbling and fighting for crumbs from the table against each other, when we should be coming together to really focus on what the source and the origin of our shared oppression is. So, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, I think I totally agree with what you're saying. My work is really coming out of a lens of humanity. You know, nobody is free until we're all free. You know, Fannie Lou Hamer, one of my favorite American activists, Martin Luther King Jr. said this similar thing. No one is free until we're all free. This idea of interconnectedness and how individualism is truly a death cult. This idea of the Western idea of we can do everything on our own, pull up your bootstraps, you don't need each other. And I really think that we will not survive with each other. We're deeply interconnected. And so, yes, I think we don't leave anyone behind. That includes the men. You know, I'm a womanist, which is an idea that comes out of the feminist movement. It was actually a pushback by black women during the feminist movement because we were being left out. You know, the feminists were like leaders of the KKK themselves, you know? And so it's like they were like leading all the white supremacist movements and leaving out black women. You know, they were saying women got the right to vote in the United States. It's like, no, white women got the right to vote. I was still, black women, my grandmothers and all of them weren't still having the right to vote. And so womanism understands that there's this interconnected idea that if I am free, me as a black woman, that freedom is being able to be around everyone who touches me, my son, you know, my father, the men in my neighborhood, the community. It understands the relationship and balance between nature and humans and each other. It's like a deep, deep connected idea of real healing for all. And so that's so important. I think it's really, without that work, without being a womanist and like studying, I don't think my work within that ministry would have been able to grow and have a lens that is so global, that is everyone is on board, is men, women, non-binary, like everyone, you know, like this is about life, you know, this is about life. If you have life in you and you see what the systems are doing to degrade us, our divinity of who we are as living human beings, and you're a part of this. And so I totally agree with the idea. You know, womanism grounds me in the idea that no one is free until we're all free. And that includes everyone, all people, all beings, including the earth, including the beings on the earth, you know, including animals, everyone, we're all connected. And so capitalism is not only killing us, but it's killing the planet itself. So you want to talk about us being like harmed by it? We're not going to have a planet to even be on to be even fighting about it. You know, it's like there is no more Earth at this point for what capitalism is doing to the Earth itself and to the land. And so I love that you asked that question.
Hello. First of all, hi, my name is Hafsa Lodi. I'm from King Abdulaziz University. I just wanted to thank you. This is such a beautiful talk that I've had the privilege to experience today. And I wanted to ask, being born in a generation where social media is such a prevalent thing, where it's everywhere, as early as I remember, how can I decentralize social media and centralize more of a community around myself, especially where I come from a community where social media is such a prevalent thing, where if you don't have it, you're shamed, you know? Like as you said with the pre-colonial culture, like texts, they prioritize rest and they prioritize community and they prioritize, and it's even with Islamic texts as well, they prioritize the same thing. I just want to know, like, how can I not demonize that escapism within myself? Thank you.
Was there a particular person, just for all of us?
In general, I would like to hear.
Okay.
I mean, you're saying that. It's clearly directed at you.
No, it's not. You don't like social media either.
Well, I don't know whether... So I am what is laughingly called an elderly millennial, which is so flattering, no? Which basically means a bit of this, but not that much. And therefore, I see and I am concerned about following generations. However, I don't know, man. It was sticky even before we had the photos to prove it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like the medium, funnily enough, is not the message anymore because the media is so proliferated throughout everything that we do. And you know, this is like Emma's work demonstrates that ideas to do with how we have been snippy to each other and I don't mean to put it mildly, that's all right, I didn't mean it like that. We have been in the business of oppressing each other through the ways in which we see each other for much longer than we've been able to do it like this. Yeah, and so perhaps the thing to remember, is that your phone is the documentary evidence of the thing that is happening. It is not the thing that is happening itself.
That's good.
Thank you. I literally just thought of that right now, so please don't, So to have faith that the world exists outside of it, and also, to quote a great work of my generation, if you build it, they will come. And you may have to advertise it on Instagram in order for them to know where to come.
Yep.
Use it. They will.
Use it as a tool, yeah. I think that's such a great point, using it as a tool. We use, the NAP ministry, my organization, uses social media as one of many tools to help deprogram the masses. So I use it as a tool to help deprogram people to, when I first started posting on social media, it was all about the events and also just little propaganda messages, go lay down. And I would just put that up. It would just be, we're known for these memes that just say, go lay down. If I want to get a little sassy, go lay your ass down. Like that, it would actually say that. And then it would be things like, capitalism doesn't like you. Just finding ways to like put up these messages and use it very intentionally as a tool for whatever your community is you want to build, for whatever loving ideas you want to be in. But I do understand what you're saying because I have a 17-year-old, and young people, you see babies now with tablets and phones at 5. I was babysitting a little girl and her mother was like, let me get her phone. I said, her phone? She's 5. She was like, this is her phone. She got her little things on it. So it's like, yes, this is in your hand from the time you're literally born. 3-year-olds has their little cute tablets. You don't see children with books anymore. Have anybody noticed that? I love to see him with a book. But, as a mom, I used to always have a fun bag with my son. It was like you had your little Cheerio cereal, cheese, books, toys.
Actually, so can I just interject as
Yes.
a historian because of like the judging things?
Yes.
From the days of the ancient Greeks, people have been bad-mouthing children for the ways they spend their time.
Yes.
And actually they said the same thing about books. It's like,
Did
you know what,
they?
you just like walk around all these days and young people, they just have their nose buried in a
But
book
what's
the whole
happening
time.
neurologically to their brains? Like on the tablets and the technology, there's neuroscience is telling us that it's doing something to brain development.
No, but neuroscientists weren't there 2,000 years ago
I
to know what was
know,
happening.
but a 5-year-old on YouTube for 10 hours is not.
Well, no.
They're doing it. They're like on laptops and they're in strollers with tablets from the time they're like 3 years old in their hands looking at things, And so, what about hand play? I've been asking about the idea of hand and motor coordination. They don't even know how to hold crayons anymore. Like I was giving my niece a crayon and she was like, what's a crayon? Throwing a crayon at me. Like, you draw with it, there's pencil, you can color. And she was like all about the tablet. So the hand coordination helps with mental coordination.
It has profoundly destructive consequences that books do not even like remotely present. I know Socrates was actually like anti-reading. I'm aware of that, but I feel that like I was watching the news yesterday, and it was just talking about like how the birth rate global, like in many, not everywhere, in many parts of the world, is just dropping so rapidly. But it was like, it's not even like it's not even couples who are not having children. It's those couples are not getting together in the first place.
That's right.
People are just really single and isolated, and they're linking that very strongly to our use of our phones and to social media.
I read that article.
That actually possibly presents like actually the ultimate threat to the continuation of our species, you know? Yeah, wild times.
It's wild times. So I think maybe that go back to her question.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully we're, use social media as a tool, have limits around it like you would with anything. Have boundaries, detox sometimes. I do detoxes a lot offline when I'm just not on there, and it does help to kind of have a new idea. It helps with the body, it helps with the brain. And just like with anything, you don't want to do too much of it. So I think knowing that as a grounding place. I love what she said about things are happening even if it's not happening on your phone. Like, connect with that.
I would love to get to more questions, but I think our hour is up. But these wonderful authors will all be outside signing their books, and all of their books are available to buy. So you can try and sneak in a quick question with your signing. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.